Joining us today, Tyler Hamilton, all the way from Missoula, Montana. I want to say a big welcome. Thank you for being the first guest on Z Podcast. You're a guy that I have followed for years and years, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, but a major thank you for taking time out of your day and to answer some questions and for us to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's exciting. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. I think it's worth giving the listeners a little bit of context into, okay, so this is the first kind of podcast that I'm doing on my own after being a guest on a few. And my history has to play a little bit into this because we've intersected a couple times, in the past. So to give you a brief rundown, kids grow up and they're watching NBA and they're watching NFL, and they can tell you every play that a certain linebacker made in a Super Bowl, right? So in 1996, I went headfirst into cycling and triathlon and running, like headfirst, after never really been in it at all my life. I was 24 years old. I also dated your former teammate's sister, which I didn't tell you about. No. So I actually dated Kathy Livingston when she lived in Miami.
Wow. Okay.
Briefly, long time ago.
Yeah. Great.
So I was so into it, and she gave me a couple of Kevin's jerseys from Postal at the time, which was super cool. One is actually framed in my home office.
Yeah.
And
Kevin was a great teammate and just a stand-up guy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So fast forward, so the tours are happening. I'm taking it all in, just like a normal American guy would take in football or basketball. I'm watching every stage. I'm getting every magazine. I'm buying the DVDs afterwards and rewatching them. I just knew everything about it. It was just going head first. So really watched your career, watched all of your racing and just completely enamored by it. And then I guess I met you briefly at Interbike one year when you had thousands of people waiting in a line to see you. And as I mentioned, we have, another couple mutual friends. So kind of all had this intersection, but it's only in the last month that we connected. And I've got some questions and just for the listener out there, to give you guys some understanding of Z Podcast and this podcast in particular with Tyler. I've been given free reign to ask any questions I want. I will barely, if any, touch on doping. It's not something that it interests me or concerns me. There's so much out there. I watched your speech. I believe it was at Oxford. I watched the USADA speech. There's tons of stuff of you talking about that time of your life. But what interests me is really the business of being a professional cyclist, the business of being a professional athlete, and what you're doing now. And you're doing some really remarkable things. And I want to chat about that and talk about cycling, talk about training. There's so many cyclists, obviously, that I know of out there through coaching and through racing. And I know that will listen to this, and I want to give them some in-depth into, okay, you're 6 to 8 weeks out from the Tour de France. What does Monday look like? So I want to ask a little bit about that, and I'll take a breath now. If you want to chime in on anything before I get started, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me on your podcast, Lee. It's a real honor. It's been nice to, I don't remember meeting you there at Interbike, got to be honest.
Of course.
But it's been nice to get to know you this last few months. And, it's kind of wild. Yeah, you coached an old high school classmate of mine, and you've put us back in touch, and that's really neat. It's
something I've enjoyed connecting people, especially the last, I'd say, 8-10 years. I really enjoyed being a connector for people. So happy to do that. And,
it's been nice knowing you, Lee. And, And I appreciate you. You've helped me out a lot just these last couple of months, in my job.
Of course, yeah. So let's delve right into it. So, just kind of let me give some highlights to the listener, to the watcher out there. In case you don't know, We'll go through, this is, the resume of Tyler Hamilton, grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, I believe it was Marblehead, Mass, right?
Yep, Marblehead.
Marblehead. And joined, first it was a Montgomery Bell cycling team.
Yep, pro cycling. My first year as a pro, Montgomery Bell, correct. Yep.
Montgomery Bell, then went on to Postal until 01, from 95 till 2001 on the Postal team. With how many tours with Lance did you win?
3 tours.
3 tours, and then switched over to Team CSC. I have questions about that.
Yeah.
From there, went to Phonak, then to Tinkoff, which I've got a couple of funny questions about that. And then with Rock Racing. And just to give some wins here, 1 stage win at the 03 Tour, unbelievable day. I mean, I was standing in front of the television watching that, man. Didn't know you from a hole in the wall, but standing watching you that day. Tour de France is obviously the hardest sporting event in the world, bar none. That's my opinion. Most will say that. Giro d'Italia 2002, a stage win at the Giro. The Vuelta, a stage win in 04. And then overall wins at Tour de Romandie, one of my favorites. And Dauphiné, overall win at the Dauphiné. National Road Race champion in 08, and the winner of Liège, Bastogne-Liège as well. All of these are just remarkable races, and I was fortunate to cover these races actually for BN, Tour de Romandie, Liège, Giro, and just incredible to watch. So I kind of wanted to have an understanding right now of, maybe your childhood and how you got into cycling.
Yeah, as you said, grew up in on the East Coast, Marblehead, Massachusetts. 2 fantastic parents, an older brother and older sister, and kind of grew up chasing them around. My parents were pretty just easygoing, like kind of let us do our thing. And
what kind of work did they do? Your folks?
My dad owned a business called the Office Outfitter, kind of set up offices kind of from soup to nuts.
Okay.
That was back in the 80s.
Okay.
When calculators were like this big,
Sure.
Mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I was super lucky there. And but they kind of let us run around Farrell more or less, and so I always hung out with my brother and sister and their friends, and I think that helped me a lot as an athlete, because I kind of learned everything a little bit faster, being the youngest of 3.
Did you ride your bike a lot?
Just around in the neighborhood. My neighborhood was filled with kids, so we were riding bikes and skateboards.
Okay.
And, playing street hockey and baseball and hide and go seek.
Yeah.
But not. I really didn't get into cycling really till later. But my big sport growing up was downhill ski racing. So I did that really seriously up through college, and then I had an injury in college. I broke 2 vertebrae in my upper back, and then they said when I got out of bed, they said I could ride I couldn't ski that winter, but I could ride a road bike.
So that's what amazes me. Because you picked up cycling in college, right? At UC Boulder, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I did some cycling before that as a cross-training activity for ski racers. You ride your bike in the summer. You run, you ride your bike, you do plyometrics. That's what we call dry land training, off the snow training. So we did, we did some bike riding for sure. So I wouldn't say I was brand new to it, but I certainly wasn't that into the race. I was a ski racer at heart. That was what I wanted to excel at, and I still had big goals. But I think it turned out I was a better bike rider than I was a ski racer.
Yeah. And that, like I said, that's what interests me, because I remember being at the Olympic Training Center and talking with some of the sports scientists there. It might have been whatever it was, early 2000s. And one of the sports scientists said, you'll find that the vast majority of whatever number he gave of Olympic athletes, and you did go to the Olympics in 04, the vast majority of Olympic
2000.
And Sydney in 2000, that's right.
Yeah.
All had 10 years or 10,000 hours of sport of growing up. And so you had the downhill skiing, which isn't exactly like cycling.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting is like 93, 94. Because if you started racing, kind of probably your first pro contract was what, 95?
95, yeah.
So you must have been training pretty intensely on the bike, 93, 94, to at least develop the engine, right?
Yeah. I think, but a lot of people don't realize ski racing it takes a ton of discipline.
Oh yeah.
If you're not training on the snow, you're training off the snow. Tons of time in the weight room. Focusing, a lot of mental, visual training.
Mm-hmm.
Really disciplined. That taught me as a young kid how to be really disciplined.
Cool.
From when I was really 8, 9 years old. So I felt like that was a huge, a great start to my professional cycling career. Having that and being hard work ethic and yeah.
So what about the racing?
But then 1993 was my back injury was in 92, 93. Oh yeah, I was like the riders around Boulder were like, oh, you should join the collegiate cycling team, and I did that, and then I won the collegiate national championship that year. Then 94, I was on the U.S. national team traveling all around the world. So super green.
How amazing!
I didn't know what I was doing, but it was fun. I was I could suffer. I think with the best of them, I think of a high pain threshold, and cycling's kind of all about suffering. So yeah, I just worked hard. I worked hard. I didn't really complain much, and just tried to learn from the riders, more experienced riders. Yeah, and then 95, all of a sudden I was pro, and then 2 years later I was on the start line in the Tour de France, and I was, I don't know. I don't think I was I would assume I was one of the greener cyclists to ever race in the Tour.
Sure,
one of them. Yeah.
So when you get this contract, this first contract in 95, like how is that presented to you? How does that opportunity come up? Do you have mentors, or advisors working with you, at the time?
Oh, at that time, no. I mean, I was low man on the totem pole, big time. I was painting my. I was renting a room and with some buddies there in Boulder, and I was painting my neighbor's house to make some extra cash in the off season, and I was on the ladder when I got a call from the owner of the team that offered me my first professional contract, and I think I made $30,000, and for me that was like heck yeah. To ride my bike, to get paid to ride your bike. I was like, absolutely.
No negotiation took place.
That was good for me. That was good for me. Yeah, I mean, I was I was a broke bike racer really. So I painted houses, and I had a pickup truck, and I helped bring people's junk to the dump and stuff in the pickup truck just to make some cash, because it was hard to have a steady job when I was a bike racer. So,
and so
I was scrapping it, but I love those years were great. It kind of, you had to work extra hard. It probably took a little luck too, and but yeah, I feel fortunate. I was in the right place. Boulder, Colorado is a huge, endurance sports town.
Yeah,
so I was fortunate to be there, and fortunate enough to have a lot of riders who were much better than me early on, and so I could learn from them. And I climbed the ranks pretty fast. But had I been in a different town, I might not have had that chance.
So they call you up and they ask you to be on this team.
Yeah.
And that was Montgomery Bell, which kind of morphed into Postal.
Yeah, it was the existing Postal team, same organization. It just by 96 they had found a new title sponsor, which was U.S. Postal. Gotcha.
Did you do Tour DuPont? You did that?
Two or three times. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
That's special race.
That was a special race. Yeah, 12 days along the eastern seaboard, shoreline, and all the way from New York down to Atlanta.
North Carolina.
Yeah. It was great. It was great.
It's interesting because our family, we have a home up on Beach Mountain, on the top of Beach Mountain, where one of the stages finishes, and it's a interesting place because the myth of the Tour DuPont is still there. It's still on the mountain. I mean, people still talk about it. There's a small college at the foot, which you probably know, Lees McRae College, which had this national champion cycling team. So it
surprised me. Yeah. That's a tough climb. Yeah, I remember doing that many times, and I'll never forget my brother running alongside of me, just screaming at me.
No.
Yeah. Good Good
Yeah,
memory.
I used to test myself on that climb, trying to be like you guys. It's a brutal 5K climb.
Oh yeah, and that the whole and it's surrounded by other climbs too, so
Oh yeah.
it's a tough area to good place to to be a bike rider for sure, but
Oh, it's
not
beautiful.
easy terrain. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so
probably a little
beautiful up
harder
there.
than riding in Miami.
Just a bit. Just
Yeah.
a bit. Just a tad.
Yeah.
So you're doing some races, and then like, how does that all happen with moving to Europe and like the contracts? Did you have an agent at the time, a lawyer? Like, kind of, what's the business behind you at the time in moving to Europe and getting these contracts? Just, or that one contract at that time?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when I got an agent. It was maybe 96 or 97. Yeah, and it was kind of a friend of mine in the Boston area. This guy
Okay.
Lionel Fulkerson. Yeah, he was great. He helped me out for probably 2-3 years. It's just nice to have another set of eyes on something on a contract. Sometimes these days, in cycling you have 3 different divisions at the professional level, and a lot of these lower Division 2 and Division 3 levels, it's not that pretty. They hand you a contract and they're like, basically sign it now.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to have an agent, or don't want you to have a lawyer look over your contract.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not with everybody, but some.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have another set of eyes take a look at it, and also speak on your behalf for sure. Made a big difference, because I probably would have ridden for $500.
So, and how long were your contracts? Was it like a 2 or 3 year contract at first?
Yeah, most of my contracts in my career were like 2-year contracts.
Okay.
Contracts. Yep. So yeah, I think probably my first contract was first time with an agent was probably a 97 season, because I think originally I signed a 2-year contract, but just by myself when I was painting.
Gotcha. And where'd you move to originally? Where was the first place you moved to in Europe in 97?
Yes. So my first 2 years, 95, 96, we were like a domestic team, kind of like a 3rd division, kind of a AAA baseball team type. And we'd take trips over to Europe, but we'd live stateside. By 97, we got a bump up with the Postal Service with our budget. And we became basically a European team. And yeah, I think I was one of the original 5 or 6 that moved to Girona, Spain.
Nice.
That was when nobody knew about Girona, and it was just incredible. Our director at the time, Johnny Welts, found a place for us to rent and kind of set up shop for us. Girona, Spain's about an hour north of Barcelona, so in Catalonia, on the close to the Mediterranean. Yeah, close. So good weather, close to big airports. Barcelona's to the south. Perpignan, France, is just over the border, like an hour to the north. And then nowadays you can even fly out of Girona. So
and you're single at that time? I mean, you're over there. You're single.
Yeah, no, I had a girlfriend. Who I ended up marrying at Haven. Haven Perchinsky. Yeah, she was great. We started out living, separately apart. And that's how she had a big job in what was it? In marketing back in Boston.
Okay.
And I was racing over in Europe. That was hard, and eventually, she moved over there with me, and
Interesting. And so you're racing over there, you're training over there. Obviously, I've heard some stories at the time where, cell phones weren't. There's no email, there's no cell phones really. Maybe emails coming in around that time, but compared to now, going over there as a young pro cyclist, it was much more difficult, right?
Yeah.
And did you speak Spanish or anything?
I liked it. I was, and I spoke a little bit of Spanish, but in Girona they speak Catalan.
Okay.
So in Spain they have probably like 7 different languages, and they understand Spanish and speak Spanish, but they like to speak Catalan. So I spoke a little Catalan, a little Spanish, but I never became really great at any language. But I guess I learned enough to get by, and I guess that was good enough.
Yeah, you did all right, I'm sure.
I spent a year in France. I spoke, I learned French in high school, so that helped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I lived at the end of my career, I lived I think 3 years or so in Tuscany, in Lucca, Italy.
Nice.
That was nice, just different change of pace, and beautiful Yeah. I felt very lucky, very fortunate.
And
Great places and
yeah,
beautiful places, and met a lot of incredible people really along the way. You know,
no, no doubt.
different cultures, and yeah, it was fun. It was
No
really
doubt. And around that time, like 97, 98, 99, like how's your training set up? Is there a formal coach? Or are you doing it yourself? Like who's setting up the workouts and what's that look like?
Yeah. You know, that totally changed over my career. At the beginning of my career, it was just kind of following what the veterans were doing, all the older riders.
Wow, really?
At the beginning of my professional career, it was like, more is better. So we were just doing tons of hours, big, long hours. They call it LSD, long, slow distance.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did that a lot in my early professional career. And then it was, that was pretty silly. And then I had coaches probably starting in 99, I think was the first time. And then, where I started training way more specifically, a lot of interval training, really, really hard, really easy, really hard, really easy. Like really
power meter or no power meter at that time?
Power meter.
Right then in 99.
Yeah.
Listen up, listen up. Yeah. People who are watching and listening, the power meter.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't want to overdo it. You want some people just, I don't know. I coach some people, athletes these days, and some people have grown up with a power meter and that's all they know. And you also got to learn how to listen to your body and tell when your body either is rested or needs rest. But yeah, I trained way more specifically, probably starting in 98, 99, and I think that helped me a lot. So I had a pretty good base, I guess, from doing all those long, slow miles. But to really take another step, you had to start doing the explosive work, really high end work, and then resting really hard too. Rest is equally as important.
Yeah.
Learning about that, and then losing weight too. I used to be a ski racer, so I was pretty. I was never a big guy, but pretty muscular. So it took some years to kind of shed off some of the upper body weight and just kind of lean out a little bit. And in a race like the Tour de France, it's, you don't want to be carrying extra weight, especially if you're kind of a GC rider, general classification rider. Yeah. Yeah.
So in talking about that, I made a bunch of notes so I wouldn't forget. In talking about that, like how often were you racing, and what was any responsibilities that you had outside the team? I had a great mentor once that told me never ask a two-faced question because most people forget the second part. But so maybe I'll ask the first one, which is how often are you racing in season?
Probably 75 to 100 days a year.
So that would equate to how often per month? Like how many days?
So you have a short off season. Middle of October through end of January kind of thing, and then
shorter now.
February. Yeah, shorter now exactly. Yeah. So February through let's call it end of September, early October. Right. You're racing. I don't know. Yeah. 10 days a month. It seemed like something like that.
And what?
Yeah, but then you're racing the whole month of July.
Right.
So.
So your contract was with Postal ended in that first one, that 2-year one ended in 98 or 99?
So let's see. Yeah, my first contract once it became Postal Service was probably I think most of them were 2-year contracts. Yeah.
And the first 1 or 2 contracts, if I can ask.
Oh yeah.
6 figures, high five, low 6.
No, 5 figures. Still in the early years. Yeah.
Incentive clauses in there for wins.
Yeah, bonuses. Yeah, I mean bonuses for doing well. That was always in there. And that helped. And then clauses that would bump up your following year salary if you did well.
Okay.
I think it took me, I don't know, let's see, 1, 2, maybe my 5th year as a pro, I was probably in the 6 figures. Yeah.
And did you have other?
And then got another agent. I worked with Bill Stapleton, who was also Lance Armstrong's agent. He was good in the business. He knew what he was doing. Yeah, he negotiated, I think, my final contract with Postal, which was a good one. I was basically, I wouldn't call myself a super domestique, but I think that's what they called me back then.
Right,
So
right.
I got paid pretty good money to be a domestique, to ride for.
Right.
My biggest goal was to be, at the top of my game for the Tour, to help Lance win. To basically drag him around France and get him to the most critical part of the race as fresh as possible. So,
and
yeah, I did that.
Was that environment just pressure cooker? Let's say the last 1 or 2 years with him.
Yeah. I mean, it evolved over time. The first year, '99, we called ourselves the Bad News Bears. Most teams have these big, shiny, big buses.
Yeah, you guys had the campers.
Yeah, we had 2 rented campers. I think we rented one from like a, rent-a-camper, and the other one was, I think our mechanic had a camper.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Exactly. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yeah, and and you're driving around during these transfers in France on these small little twisty roads, and everything would be rolling from one side to the other, clankety clank, clank, clank. Yeah, it was, good. Those were good, but those were good times. Those were good. Some of the, my favorite memories really was the climb up. Once we got up to that level, then it became, a different ballgame.
Yeah, sure. And you have so you're getting paid by the team really, nicely after 3-4 years, right? And did you have personal sponsors at the time? Are you making money from appearances, or I mean, is it a big world or a small world? I guess you guys won in '99, 2000, 2001. So going into like 01, 02, you can see how I'm doing this on a chronological line. Otherwise, I'll go crazy with all the numbers that I have written down. But so like early 2000s, business, you as a professional athlete, are you feeling pretty good? I think you're living in Nice at the time. Is that right?
Yeah, the year 2000, I lived in Nice. Yep, Lance was living there, and I remember him saying like, "Hey, come on up to Nice from north of Girona, Spain, and the training in Nice is awesome, really
beautiful." Yeah, I love
it. I thought a good opportunity to train kind of every day with Lance, and Kevin Livingston was also there. Frankie Andrea was there. Let's see, guys on other teams who were there. Bobby Julich was there. Axel Merckx. Cipollini was right down the road. We'd ride with him once in a while. But yeah, good training, really hilly, really mountainous, and that was a good experience.
And you're stable, and
most of the biggest thing was your contract with your team, and then you had a few little small sponsors. I wasn't like Lance that had he transcended the sport. He had car companies that sponsored him and all that. I think Oakley Sunglasses was a sponsor of mine. Nike was the sponsor. Who else? Yeah, some just in sport sponsors.
Sure.
Sponsor me individually.
And
so then you had friends. You had friends that would take care of you. Kind of like sometimes your hands were tied because you had your sponsors that you had to ride with their equipment, but you might like a different company. For example, I rode a Parley bike in the 2002 Giro d'Italia with a Looks sticker on it.
Oh, you did.
So
See, it's stories like that you just can't get. It's those little stories. I've read so much, but I never knew that. I knew about some other things, but that's cool.
Yeah.
And what's the during the Tour de France with Postal, what's the mood? Is the mood fluctuating during the 3 weeks, or are you kind of stressed? Are you feeling confident about yourself, especially in, I think it was 2001, 2002? Are you feeling confident about yourself, and is that leading to conflicts, or kind of what's the mood of the team? Take us into that.
Well, I mean, it all depends. The early years, like in '99, we were the Bad News Bears. We had Lance, who was a great rider with a bunch of unknowns, and I was the unknowns. Lance took yellow kind of early on, and I remember the press saying, he's a strong rider, but he doesn't have a strong team. It's clear you can't win the Tour without a strong team.
Yeah.
So, that was fun, building up and kind of surprising everybody and, riding well for Lance. But then after that, then it became, we had the bullseye on our back. And, after year one, it was like, the biggest thing going into the second year was, some of Lance's biggest competitors weren't there in year one in 99. So can he do it, with a full field? And we did it again in 2000. And, the team kept getting bigger and bigger. And then by 2001, we had, he brought in all these ringers to work for him. He brought in Roberto Heras, who was already a Grand Tour winner. And now he's going to ride as a super domestique for Lance, and Chechu Rubiera, Victor Hugo Pena, all these big riders. So,
and yourself?
The team changed a lot. And then, I guess by the 2001 season, it was like I could look back 3 years and look ahead 3 years and see myself like in the exact same spot. And, that was a great spot to be in, but I did feel like I didn't want to ever look back on my career and say, I wish I went out on my own and, and tried to lead a team. So yeah, during the 2001 season, I was approached by another team, and I decided to, take that opportunity.
Was that CSC?
Yeah, CSC with Bjorn Rees. Yeah.
So Bjorn Rees, he approaches you, and makes a suggestion that you can come over and lead the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And at what point do you have a conversation with the postal brass, either Johan, or what point do you have that conversation, if you recall, and how is that received?
Yeah, that's a great question. Lance and I shared the same agent, so I didn't need to say anything. Lance knew, and Johan Bernil knew, because Lance and Johan are like this. So they knew.
Were you excited?
Yeah, I was excited. We did a press release during the 2001 tour, like right at the end, kind of like, to say that I was leaving the next year. And, we, it was a very positive press release. But I think the truth was they weren't psyched that I was leaving. But, they were, I don't think they wanted to. They had other big ringers on the team, and they probably didn't want to pay me what I thought I deserved. So, it was time to move on. Yeah, but our relationship changed. And
it did.
No longer, yeah.
The door was shut.
Door was shut. That's all right. That's it's sport. It's a pretty cutthroat sport. So, But it was nice to kind of go out on my own.
Cool.
Be on it. It was a Danish team. Great. The Danes are awesome people. A lot of fun, and I just liked change a change of pace. I think it would be silly to ride on the same team your whole career. You got to
change things up, try things out.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to take a different street right now. This has been awesome. I've got a few more questions, but I want to take a different street and maybe do some word association. Probably because my favorite movie is Skyfall, so they have that word association. They have that word association. He says, the one guy says one thing and James Bond says one word, to answer. Anyway, so here we go. So just to have some fun, one word, if you can, to describe these names or places. If you can just think of maybe 1, 2 words. Be flexible here. You ready?
I think so. Yes.
All right. Alpe d'Huez.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah. With all the people on it, it's amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. No.
Best time up d'Huez, which is did you ever test Alpe d'Huez? You did the time trial, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I didn't do I dropped out of the tour my final year in 2004. So I never did that time trial. I don't know my fastest time, but
gotcha.
I do remember doing it. I think the '97 tour when they did basically a lead out. It was Marco Pantani.
Yeah.
They gave him a lead out for the whole stage because it was flat up to the bottom, and it was going so fast. And then he hit the bottom and he just took off like a bird.
It's a sick climb. All right, so the next one, Ventoux. Mont Ventoux.
Altitude.
One word. Altitude.
Yeah.
That's one climb. It's not one climb, but it's one of the main ones I haven't done, which I'm dying to do one day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
One day.
Beautiful climb. Yeah, a lot of it's above tree line and it goes to altitude. I'm not sure that with the top elevation is, but it feels different than other climbs because they say since there's not a whole lot of plant life up towards the top, there's less oxygen. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, Lance always suffered a little bit more on Mount Ventoux, and we always thought it would maybe have to do with I don't know, but it's a beautiful climb also.
I love getting this input from you. Here's another one for you. Passage du Bois.
Slippery.
Good one. I just ran these random. This is like, you know, going through like kind of a history. Ekimov. Ekimov.
Yeah.
Any word?
Yeah. Ekimov. Let me see. What's the first word? Yeah, fantastic time trialist.
Okay, good one. How about this one? Which do you prefer, the Rockies or the Alps?
I'm gonna say the Rockies.
The Rockies.
Yeah, I live in them, so yeah. But the Alps are beautiful. Yeah, incredible. But the Alps and the Rockies are a lot alike, actually, for sure. Kind of longer and a little bit more gradual than, for example, the Pyrenees on the south side of France.
Yeah, for sure. And last one, just to have some fun. Tenerife.
Yeah, I think of altitude because we go to Tenerife and stay on this top of this volcano. It's up at like 2,000 meters, which was 6,500 feet or so. We go there for like 2 weeks and train, and there was a Hotel Parador there, and go there, train, and typically we'd ride down during the day, ride around at the bottom, and ride up at the end of the day up this big volcano.
Good times, those training camps?
No. Bored. Oh, so, I mean, there's nothing to do up there. So it's like you're either eating, training, or sleeping.
Monk life.
Big time monk life. Big time. I don't miss those days.
Wow. Yeah, I remember reading in your book, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a while ago when I read your book, but you had a funny phrase in there. And I mean, I don't know how much truth, but you spent a great deal of attention or paying attention to your weight.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, I mean, I never raced even remotely close to your level, but I had 1.5 seasons where I really focused on nutrition and hired nutritionists. I hired a coach who you actually know, which we can talk about offline. But I filled out some forms for this nutritionist coach. And it said, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? It was startup forms. 5'10". At the time, I was 155. The guy says, "You're far too heavy," and I was like, "All right, game on." So, so I got down to 7% body fat and held that. You must have been at 4 or 5. What was that like? I know you pay a lot of attention. Your book, you write that you knew you were ready for the tour when you could almost see the outline of your organs or something to that effect. What was your thinking during those years?
They were little. I mean, we got like grossly skinny. I think the skinniest ever, like my fat test, the thinnest it ever was like 2.8. So 2.8. Yeah, just that's not healthy. I don't encourage anybody to do that. But yeah, you'd start to feel certain things when you knew you were getting like skinny enough, I guess, or tour ready, and you feel your size small jersey flapping in the wind, on your arms, because you wanted your arms to kind of be like pencils, When I had this wooden chair at home in the dining room, and I'd sit on it for dinner, and I'd have to put a towel underneath my seat so it wouldn't hurt. Yeah. So I was getting, my butt was getting pretty bony.
Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, just no pectoral muscles, just a bunch of ribs. Yeah. Not really not a healthy weight that you want to carry for a long amount of time.
Sure.
Just like your fitness level, you kind of did the same thing with your weight. Like I got my lightest weight was typically like right at the beginning of the tour or during the tour. But it was something I really couldn't sustain for, month after month after month, or didn't want to sustain because it was too big. After the tour, typically you gain like 2 kilograms just like that, which is, 4.5, 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just by looking at a piece of chocolate cake. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading those pages of your book and how you detail it. And for the listeners and watchers out there, if you haven't gotten Tyler's book, read Tyler's book, it's really a fascinating look in detail at his life at that time and everything that went along with it. So it's very well written. I mean, you and Coyle, I think, did a great job with that.
Yeah, and it really digs into the part that we haven't talked about, the doping, the dark side of the sport. Yeah, it gives a pretty detoiled report on that.
The very, very dark side is true. So just a couple more. So Tour de France 2003 Stage 9, the infamous off-roading event that happens. Boloki goes down, Lance goes across the field. You're seen on the screen making hand gestures. And just if you want to tell us, what's going on in your head at that time? Were you like, hey, let's wait, or what's going on? That's a famous stage. You can pull it up on YouTube at any time. Just want to give a brief insight into kind of what you were thinking. I've always kind of wanted to know, and now's an opportunity for others as well to hear it straight from you.
Yeah, that was an incredible stage. That was in the Alps, and it was super, super hot. And that was really important that day because we had this climb. Maybe it was a category 3 climb, category 2 or category 3 climb, but maybe 10K to go, and really technical descent to the finish. And
it looked slippery.
It was so hot that the tarmac was melting. And this guy Boloki from Spain was really pinning it going fast on the descent, trying to catch up to this guy Vinokurov, or we call him Vino, who had attacked just on the top. And I think Lance was on his wheel, and I was like 1 or 2 guys behind Lance. And Boloki goes down, which is just a horrible crash. And I've seen it a few times since. It makes you cringe. He just smashed his hip and really was never the same after. Lance goes off the road, in my vision, he just disappeared off the road, and I thought he just went off some cliff. And so, 2 people out of the tour like that. We go around that one turn, and then the next turn was like a switchback. And after we go around the switchback, I look up to my left, like thinking I'm gonna see Lance, yard sailed all over the mountainside, and there he is, like riding. He said he went off, and there was a little footpath, in the grass, but still, he really lucked out that it wasn't, if there were rocks there or anything, So he said he went straight over the side of the road, and luckily there was a little footpath. He kind of cut off that switchback and rode back to the road and jumped on his bike. That was pretty amazing. That tour was amazing. Had all sorts of crashes and all sorts of suspense. Yeah.
It was.
But I mean, that was what, 03?
03, yeah.
So, I still obviously cared a lot about him, and I was happy to come around that switchback and see that he was okay. And it was some miraculous recovery.
Game on.
I mean, I thought it was fantastic. Right? Yeah, it was fantastic. It was good for Lance, and it was a sad day for this guy Boloki, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And so then I think if I look through my notes, and then 04 you switched to Phonak.
Yeah, that
was that strictly was it a money thing? Was it, hey, this is
it came down to a couple things: money and team leadership. Yep, and just I think CSE and Bjorn Rees, they wanted to keep me, but they were looking for more sponsors to come in. They were kind of dragging their feet, and Phonak came to me with a nice offer for 2 years and to lead a team. In 2003, I was actually a co-leader with this other guy, Carlos Sastre, who went on to win the tour a couple of years later. So I went from co-leadership to being the one leader on this other team. So it was an opportunity financially, an opportunity to lead another strong team. And that was hard. That was one of the hardest things I ever did, was having to tell Bjorn Rees that I was leaving the team. I told him as soon as I could. As soon as the 03 tour was over, I told him the next morning, on that Monday morning, which was pretty brutal. But
and when they made you the offer, do you counteroffer? Like, is that a normal thing? Was there, at this point in your career now, are you saying, hey, I'm worth this much, or your agent is saying, is there some counteroffer and some negotiation, some other points in there?
Yeah, no, still with that same agent, Bill Stapleton. Yep. And I think there was some counteroffering. Yeah, I mean, it was really in his control, and
okay,
you know, he was good at it, and so yeah, I mean, I listened to what he had to say, and I think, you know, he was pushing hard for me to go to that team, and and the guy Jim Akowitz was involved with that team, and he was, you know, this American guy who has been really involved in professional cycling for a long time. So I was getting a lot of pressure to sign with them, and you know, I signed, I think during the prologue of the 03 tour. So it was like, you know, the Tour de France was starting, but I was getting big pressure from Phonak to sign, and they didn't want to wait till after the tour was over, which would have been more convenient for me. But yeah,
of course not.
Yeah, you know, so there was kind of big stress heading into the tour.
I think the big takeaways from all this, from these talks, is like, you know, like almost with anything, it's timing. Yeah. It's timing, money. Yeah. You know, that's these, and sponsors. Well, in cycling, you know, so much of it is relying on sponsorship.
Yeah, and you know, we you know, cyclists have, we always said back then, it was like, you got to take advantage of it. When you get a nice offer, you got to kind of take advantage, because you don't know what's, you know, you're not signing these 5-year, or back then we weren't signing 5-year contracts. Anything can happen. You know, you have a bad crash and you're out. You break your leg and maybe you're out for a season or 2 seasons, and guess what? They're not going to be knocking on your door. You're going to be like begging for a contract, you know. I mean, just for example, I had a doping positive at the end of the 04 season. I sat out 2 years. You know, to come back, you know, I was like begging to get on a team. So it was night and day.
I wanted to ask that, but also what I'm curious about on the contract side is, you sign a contract, whatever your contract starts in January, you crash in June, and you're out for 4 months. Do they still have to pay you while you're out, or or do they have but they don't have to pay you for a doping positive? But let's just say a normal crash, you're still covered.
A normal crash, you're still covered. But you know, typically, if they know if your contract's up at the end of the year, and you're looking to re-sign with them, with a team, and they know like your injury was pretty significant, and they know you might not come back at 100%, they might say,
"Sure,
adios, amigo."
Yeah. Sure, and then you did a year,
and that happens a lot. You know. But if you're in the off season as well, and you get injured skiing, and you're not supposed to ski, you know, they could break their contract probably. You know.
Anything else in the contract that's kind of
so I
think would be interesting, like
you know, I always thought it was pretty funny during my prime years when I was, you know, I guess making like big money. I got my legs insured by Lloyd's of London. I remember that. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, it was recommended that I do it, so I just did it.
Yeah, not your lungs, your legs.
My legs.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's like, you're like J-Lo. J-Lo had her rear, you know, she had her ass insured.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You had your legs.
Well, there you go.
Value, it's probably the similar value, Tyler. So then you do a year with Tinkoff. I only know what I read from, you know, the trades. That guy Oleg, I guess Oleg.
Yeah, Oleg.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. You know, I think I wish I'd retired. I think.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have ever made a comeback, but that was interesting. You know, I was going from, you know, an elite team to kind of like a Division II type team. You know, new team, a Russian team with, or it's an Italian team with a Russian sponsor.
Yeah.
Oleg Tinkov's this Russian businessman. You know, Oleg, I got to be honest, he was an interesting character. He wasn't, you know, I don't think we saw really eye to eye. You know, so I spent 1 year racing for them, and went to another team.
Yeah. I remember being 07 or 08. I forget which year it was. I'm at Interbike, and for those of you who don't know, Interbike is like the largest trade show for the cycling industry every year. So I was out there on business at the show, and all of a sudden I hear this loud rock music from one of the booths, which isn't abnormal for the show. But I look over, and there's a giant TV, and it's got a cycling team in these crazy looking jerseys on the TV doing training on these mountain roads with, I think it was like a Lamborghini follow car sag wagon and an Escalade sag wagon. And then they had all of these girls in this rock racing clothing at the booth and tons of people around it. And it really was the introduction of this Rockin' Republic rock racing cycling team, which was a domestic team, which very irreverent, not in the normal theme of more of a traditional cycling team, and with a very flamboyant team owner. And then I guess after a year or two, you end up on the team with a whole bunch of guys from Europe who used to race. So I think that those were tough years for you. I think that was it seemed like when I was reading the trades and I was watching interviews, it seemed like you were a little bit detached at that time. And I was always curious as to kind of where you were around then.
Oh yeah. Those were hard. I mean, that was a great experience to ride for this guy, Michael Ball, who owned this company, Rockin' Republic Clothing, a great fashion brand. Yeah, I really enjoyed Michael because he thought outside the box. We weren't the typical professional cycling team with the old school mentality. He was thinking, he was new school and just thinking outside the box. And we had a lot of fans. And that was fun.
Great kids. Great kids.
Yeah. He made us beautiful clothes, both on the bike and off the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad they kind of pushed him out of the sport, and that's too bad. I think he was good for the sport. Just he brought in some new energy, but c'est la vie. But yeah, those were hard years for me. Coming back from this doping positive. Yeah, things didn't work out with my marriage, and it was I was kind of a broken man then, for sure. Honestly, really, until I told the truth, to a federal grand jury, and I think it was in 2011 or 12. I think 11. Yeah, I was kind of broken, kind of because conflicted with the truth, and kind of had two faces.
Yeah.
It was hard to be in that dilemma. I was in a dilemma, really. And I had a bunch going on, but it's nice to get one more opportunity to race, and then called it good, and eventually moved on and started a coaching business.
Yeah.
Originally, that was kind of all I'd been really racing my bike for such a long time. That was all I knew, or all I thought I knew. So that's what I did. Originally to start out in 2009, and then some things happened, and obviously afterwards, I got a subpoena and had to go speak in front of a grand jury and tell the truth about the doping past and all that. And that was a heavy time in my life, for sure. But it was very, very eye-opening, because I thought, I went in there more or less like kicking and screaming, meaning like I just didn't want to tell the truth. I didn't want to tell the truth about the sport, about all my old teammates and all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you said in many interviews, and you said in many interviews that that was a great day. Once it was off your chest, it wasn't just a drip; it was a faucet that opened, I believe, is what you said.
Forward.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I look back and I have goosebumps, from just thinking about it. So definitely an emotional time for me. But I went in with a basic 100-pound backpack into that courtroom, and then I came out and it was gone. So it was like I felt like after that I knew the way forward, and that was dealing with the truth. And obviously it wasn't so easy. And that's when I said, okay, I gotta, everything I said in front of the grand jury sealed, and I knew, basically, I knew it was going to get shut down, and it did. So like nothing that I said to the grand jury went out to the public, and I knew that would most likely happen. But I said, I got to tell the truth here, and I got an opportunity to speak on 60 Minutes, and I did that.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and then but it still wasn't enough, and so I decided to write a book on the whole, circus.
And do you feel like that was the 60 Minutes, the book, speaking in front of the grand jury, that's all happening around, I guess, around 11 or 12. Yeah. And are you feeling better? And where are you living? And, what are you doing for work? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you made, good money, but, are you thinking about, your career, and you're thinking about your life, what you want to do for the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I had this coaching business that I still have today, but, I didn't know if I was going to be doing that full time. But it was hard to do it all when I was writing this book. Luckily I got some help in the coaching business by this great guy named Jim Capra. So I was very fortunate there. That allowed me to kind of have a little extra time to focus on this book. And, that took 2.5 years to write.
Wow.
And then, coming out of it, I didn't know really what it was going to be like post book, but the book, came out, and it was a kind of a big splash, I guess, so.
Yeah.
So then I spent a few years I traveled around and I talked about it,
Well, I think your book was one of the first ones, I believe it was before a lot of the books that came out. I mean, I think it was before Hincapie's book. I think it was before Lance's Confession, and yours, really was the nitty gritty. I read Breaking the Chain years ago. That was that Voight? What's it?
Voight.
Voight Soigner.
Yeah.
That goes into the nitty gritty, but yours does as well. It's extremely revealing. And now, post the book, and, you've got the coaching company happening. So, I guess I got a couple questions in closing. I want to mention that my wife and I, being massive dog lovers, I always love how you brought your dog into every interview, because I remember your Pro Cycling Magazine interview. I remember the picture of you. I think you were in Nice, standing on a balcony, and you had pictures of Tugboat in there.
Oh yeah.
Right. I always loved your dog, and I think you have Tanker now. Is that right?
That Tanker was my last one. Now it's Sailor now. She's a golden. Yeah. Always
That's
Goldens.
awesome.
Always Goldens. Yeah.
Fantastic. You gotta have a dog.
I love dogs. I mean, I love really just all animals. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I always loved seeing that. And then a couple questions. Maybe what's your favorite? Maybe you just being cyclists. Which bike was your favorite that you raced on? Your true favorite, if you had one, from when you were racing.
Oh man, I love that Parley that I rode in the 2002 Giro. This guy Bob Parley started this company way back when, and it's for many years it was just a really small brand, and they've climbed the ranks and are doing great today. That was a great bike, and and then the following year I rode a Cervelo. That was in the early days of Cervelo, and they've come a long ways since then. Those were two special bikes that I really enjoyed. Yeah.
And so now you're I know what you're doing now. I don't know if you want to tell the listeners, tell us a little bit about Black Swift, and tell us a little bit about the foundation, because I think it's a remarkable work that you're setting forth.
Yeah. So so the book came out and all that, and it was some crazy years there. I didn't, I still had this little coaching business, and I didn't know what to do. I got my real estate license, did that for a year, tried in Missoula, Montana, but, I didn't really know a whole lot of people. So I did that for a year, and then, kind of retired in my real estate career. But last year, the owner of this company, Black Swift Group, approached me and brought me down to Denver, and spent a weekend talking with him, and he thought I'd do a really good job at working for this company, Black Swift Group. It's an investment. It's a financial advisor in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, and it's been great. I've learned a lot about the business. You know, I studied econ back in college. You know, but it's a long ways out since college, so it's been a steep learning curve. Yeah, I had to take my Series 65 exam, which is basically like investment law. Yeah, I passed that. You know, that was a good experience, but a hard one. Yeah.
Congrats.
And yeah, I'm kind of on the business development side of things, and
yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. We started a fund. It's called the Pro Cyclist Fund. They have 5 different funds, but this new fund that they have, it was started in June. A lot of the management fees will go to the Pro Cyclist Foundation. We're trying to help professional cyclists on the legal side, on the wellness side, and on the career development side. You know, 3 pillars that I thought, you know, could really help professional cyclists. You know, there's people think of pro cyclists, they just make a ton of money and they're all set, but they're really not. Cyclists are struggling, so trying to help out, give them resources, and you know, doing my best to give back to such a beautiful sport. So
yeah,
and you know, the Pro Cyclist Fund that we started, you know, it's already up. It started in June. It's already up just shy of 25% by the end of August. So yeah, it's, you know,
fantastic.
Good job. Yeah, and so we're going to make some money for this foundation, and it's going to be a recurring stream, and you know, hopefully this model will work, and we're confident it will.
Cool. And I know you also speak about, I know you have spoke, I don't know if it's something you routinely do. You know, you've talked with, I guess it's athletes after their career, maybe depression sets in, or talking to men about depression. And, you know, it was interesting kind of where you had a lot of these really traumatic events occur. And I was reading about kind of where you were in your life, and I believe, if I may, saying that, you know, you suffered from depression, and they equated where I was in my life around that exact time after I went through traumatic events with a divorce and some other events, and I'm feeling that way, and I'm not ashamed to say that, you know, that I suffered as well as a lot of guys do, and guys are really intimidated by that word, and they're scared of that, and there is a way out of that. And I don't know if you want to maybe talk a little bit about that, what you're doing with that, or your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up, and you know, it's nothing to feel shy about, and you know, I think we need to talk about it openly more and more. Absolutely. I mean, I suffered. You know, I was diagnosed, I think, in, you know, kind of at the highest part of my career.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That surprised me, and you know, before I knew, you know, much about it, but
you know, my wife Haven at the time, it was in the off season, and I was like trying to like stretch my season out a little bit longer before I took like a break from, you know, typically would take, you know, 3 weeks to a month off the bike, and it was after that big season with CSC in 2003, and you know, I'm sure some of that was situational stuff and extra little stresses, but I was a mess, and it took somebody else to tell me, like, hey, maybe you need to go speak to somebody, and you know, that was, you know, it changed my life for sure. You know, I think I was on medication for like 11 years. You know, I finally got to a point where I felt like, you know, I think I can do it without, and you know, I did that, and you know, focused on just eating well, and you know, exercising and all that. But yeah, the medication helped for sure, and also just talking to somebody helps so much.
100%.
So much. You know, they say
100%.
Medication can help 30%, maybe talk therapy can help 30%, but combined it can help you like 95% or something.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but it's very significant. And you know, if you're suffering, you know, talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
You know, talk to me. I'll talk to you about
it. And exercise.
I mean, I say, here's your good foundation: enough sleep, drink enough water, and get outside. even if it's for a 15-minute walk, 10-minute walk, just
100%.
Try to do that every day. If you have those three things, like that's a good foundation to your day.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean your day is going to be all roses, but it means like you're at least have a good start.
Yeah, and I had one great guy say to me, he said, obviously he listened to where I was, because there's a lot of people that are in very, very severe shape, but he was just listening to my story and what I said to him, and he goes, "You're going to be okay." And I always try to tell my friends, a few guys that open up to me, you're going to be okay, but you've got to take these steps for yourself. Just like you said, you've got to have those core pillars for your life. It's got to be good nutrition, exercise, and talking to someone, hopefully a trained professional, but it's, all of those things are important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so let's close this out. I know I've kept you on longer than I told you I would. This is the first Z podcast, but the Cycling Foundation, where else can people find you if they want to either be coached by you, or they want to get involved with the foundation, or they want to invest? Where can they find you?
Yep. The Pro Cyclist Foundation, the president's this guy, Will Dugan. Yep. The website, I believe, is procyclistfoundation.org. Yeah. If you're interested in helping to help the foundation with money, you can help. You can invest in the Pro Cyclist Fund, and that's through the Black Swift Group. Yep. So
and I'll put links to this in the notes.
That'd be great. Yeah. And the fund so far, it started in, I think, June 22nd or something like that, and it's been doing really fantastic so far. And so, it's a way to give back and help this beautiful sport. There's the athletes need it. It's tough. There's a lot of extra expenses, and there's not enough resources out there. So we're doing our best to help.
It's not all unicorns and rainbows in the pro cycling world.
Yeah. But thanks for mentioning that, Lee.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. And I just want to say thank you for making the first Z podcast and answering some of these questions. Really interesting stuff. You've had a tremendous, as you know, a tremendous life. You're still young. You're a little bit older than me. We're still young. We got these massive lives and careers. You never know what the rest of your life is going to hold. And I'm thankful that they've come here and shared a little bit about really such an interesting career path and the business and intersection of business and sports. So Tyler, thank you from my heart.
Hey, it's been an honor, Lee. Thanks so much, and really grateful to have this opportunity. I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, we'll get a ride together soon. And thank you guys, everyone who's listening and watching. Thank you. Keep tuning in. We're going to have some other fantastic guests. Take care.
Thank you, Lee.